Welcome to Girls on Film at IFFR. I'm Anna Smith. I'm so thrilled to have you all here. Thank you so much for joining us at this sold-out event, the first talk, I believe. So I'm Anna Smith. I host the Girls on Film podcast. It is so great to be back. This is our third time at the festival, but obviously we've had a bit of a break, so it's lovely for everyone to be back here in person today. So Girls on Film is a female-focused film podcast. Do we have any listeners in the audience, perchance? Give us a shout, because they can't hear you. This is being recorded, so a clap is great. Thank you. Yeah, so this is being recorded for the Girls on Film podcast, so if you could put your phones on silent, that would be great, but feel free to take photos for social media or anything like that. So we launched Girls on Film 4.5 years ago to spotlight female film critics and female filmmakers, and also to encourage young film critics. Do we have any in the audience? Because I'm doing a talk tomorrow. Is anyone coming tomorrow? Yes, give us a shout. Hooray, at least one. Okay, I'm talking to you tomorrow. I look forward to that. We've had some amazing guests come on as well. We've had recently Jamie Lee Curtis, Lashana Lynch, Linda Hamilton, Carey Mulligan, Andrea Riseborough, who was recently nominated for an Oscar. I'll come back to that in a minute, because we also had Vanya from this festival who came on to talk about this incredible festival. We'll talk more about that later. But Andrea, does anyone else hear about that? Andrea Riseborough had a surprise Oscar nomination. So we're really proud that we've been there, since sort of early in her career. We've had the nominations for the BAFTAs recently. Oscar nominations, a bit disappointing on the female director front, to put it mildly. So I'm really happy to say that we're going to have our second Girls on Film Awards soon. So we look at things a little bit differently, and this year the Woman King and The Wonder are leading the nominations. So we're so glad to be rewarding films that have actually been overlooked by the Oscars. Our categories are a little bit different. We have categories like Best Female Friendship, Best Ensemble Acting, Male Ally, because men are very important in this fight as well. And we've added some new categories this year. We've got Best Composer, Best Cinematographer, and we have a very unusual category called Best Female Orgasm on Screen. So this always makes people laugh, but it does have a serious intention, right? So our idea is to reward responsible and authentic depictions of female pleasure on screen. We've got some wonderful guests for you today, and the first one is a regular on our podcast when we come to Rotterdam, and it is Dana Linson. Please welcome Dana Linson. Round of applause. Welcome back to Girls on Film.
Thank you so much. I can't imagine this is only the third time. It felt like we've been doing this.
You're such a natural. As soon as we met you, you were like part of Girls on Film. You're like part of our furniture. So thank you for coming back.
I'm a great chair.
So listen, you're a film critic, esteemed film critic in Holland. Could you talk a little bit more about what you're up to at the moment for the audience?
Well, at the moment, a lot. I saw that there were some of the young critics of IFFR's trainee program here. Together with my colleague Jan-Pieter Ecker, we already did a lot of work before the festival. So we did a bit of a Tiger hack. So there is a one-off edition of what used to be the Daily Tiger, and now maybe it's the Daily Donkey. These 6 young critics wrote about the film EO, and we've been making, I should have brought one. I'm so bad at PR. But anyway, so we made a little mini magazine together, and the young critics also made a video essay with Nafis Nia's film Die Middag, that afternoon, that are going to be presenting on Sunday, I think, and then there's going to be a talk show with them. So basically, it's a lot of critical activities related to IFFR. Aside from that, I've been so happy that cinemas were open again. And
yes.
It's just writing about films that got a release and that I could communicate with an audience. And I'm working on some kind of a secret plan related to film criticism. So maybe next year?
Okay, maybe next year. You can reveal it.
We can reveal it. Oh, I hope so.
Maybe we can have the exclusive.
So
that would be good.
Okay, that's the deal. If we sort of succeed in pulling that off, then we'll talk about it more.
Deal. Now, you co-curated the films in the Critics' Choice section here at IFFR. Can you tell us briefly a little bit about that?
Critics' Choice, I think it's the 9th edition, because we've just kept counting even during the pandemic, and kind of these halfway versions that we did was brought back in the festival 9 years ago as a context program, but also as a way to introduce this new form of the video essay into the festival context and give people an opportunity to make a video essay as another form of journalism. And especially now, because video essays are mostly made in the academic world, and I think it's such a great tool for critics to use the materiality of the film and communicate with the toys and the tools of the filmmakers. So what we do is once the selection or a little bit before is finished, we speak with people from IFFR, select some films, and then invite critics to make a video essays. We have returning guests such as Kevin B. Lee, who will be opening this afternoon for EO. There's Inge Koolsgaard, who did a video essay a few years ago and now is doing one for Aftersun. Joost Broeren, the Dutch critic, is doing one for Die Middag. So it's a wide variety of films. They all, in one way or another, deal with the theme of play. And play we took very broad. Could be role play, could be performativity, and it could also be speaking about the roles we as critics play. I mean, here in a podcast that's also being live recorded, writing, watching, thinking, those are all the roles that we have.
Play. I love that theme. That's fantastic. And you mentioned Aftersun. Tell me what you love about this film, Dan.
Everything.
Everything. I don't know.
I mean, I'm watching the clip again, and it's there's so much in there, and at the same time, it's kind of this ephemeral, almost untouchable cinematic experience. So I guess you must feel the same.
I do,
right?
I do. I saw it for Cannes, so quite some months ago, but it just stayed with me. It is one of those films that is so specific in detail, but yet incredibly relatable, and I think that's one of its geniuses, actually. But it's about a father and daughter that go on holiday, and it's sort of about the childhood memories of the director, kind of semi-autobiographical, I believe. But it just takes you right into that holiday with them, and it doesn't let you go. It's like you're there, aren't you?
But yeah, you're there, and you're also, I mean, especially as a person who also is a daughter, and who also was a child, it's kind of easy to go in that mindset and to understand how the cinematography is making you understand that memories are more about light or about a flickering or a glittering or a reflection, and maybe not so much about an event.
Yes, yes.
And very much about a feeling. And I think that is, I mean, this is also what's being called female gaze, right? That you're more into this subjective perspective. So that's really beautiful. But for me, the film is also so much about how time loops. Because there's, I mean, we can't really speak about the film because we're going to be spoiling heavily. And it's, I mean, this is just a film that you just want to be with because the film invites you in. But it's also dealing with time and how experiences may be not chronological and how memory works. And I always love it when films do that.
Yes, the subjectivity of time in a way. Yeah, absolutely. Charlotte Wells, the director, is fantastic at that. I could talk all day about Aftersun, but...
I know. I already started to kind of give a lecture, but it's
no,
really
I love
close
it.
to
So
my
just
heart.
see it if you haven't seen it, is what we're saying. You know, and it's available on Mubi in the UK, so you can watch it there. Please welcome the director of that afternoon, Nafis Nia. Welcome, Nafis. It's so lovely to have you on Girls on Film.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Dana, please join in the conversation. We're going to have a chat, but if you've got questions as well, please chip in. So congratulations on the film. As we saw from the trailer there, I mean, even if you haven't seen the film, I'm sure you can see from that, it's such a powerful film, loaded with atmosphere, and insight into other people's lives. I felt like I learned something about the characters. Can you tell me how it came about and why you decided to make it?
This is actually a very personal story divided to two characters. This is my story. That's the seed of the story. But when I talk to the people about my story, everybody, especially people with migration background, everybody said, "Oh, but this is my story," and even and I realized it isn't my story anymore. It is everybody's story. Everybody who has left home whether it's from a country for another, or a city to another, or for a neighborhood to another neighborhood. It's the story where everybody who left home to seek happiness.
Were there any particular decisions you made in making this film where you were very clear that you wanted to do things differently in a way that perhaps we haven't seen films treating this subject before?
Yeah, for example, I'm not afraid of experimenting, and I am a huge fan of Yasujiro Uzo, Japanese filmmaker, and I always wanted to just put the camera and leave the characters to just move around and catch them as he did. And we were, I don't know if you all realized, oh no, you didn't see the film. But
Just a trailer.
just a trailer, yeah. But for example, we had to make a decision for style, and I wanted to avoid, for example, being always gray and dark and that kind of atmosphere around refugees, because their dreams are also colorful, and they put always color and makeup. So especially people from Iran, they are always very particular about their makeup and, you know, how they wear and everything. And I wanted to just take the color with me. That's one of the things I try to
We saw a bit of that in the trailer, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
the walls
exactly.
are painted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that about, you know, your female character. She could fit into any number of different genres. It's not like it's a specific kind of film. She's very complex and perhaps flawed. Would you want to talk to, you know, from the female perspective, a little bit more about what you were proud to bring to the screen in terms of that complexity? Because we're always celebrating that on Girls on
Yes.
Film. Yeah.
I am so proud of her, because this is her first film actually role, and we had many auditions, and I couldn't just find my character, and suddenly I just began to just look for her on Instagram, and looking at Iranian actress, model. So I came across of her account, and I thought, she is the one. She is my Roya. And
What's her name for the audience?
Hodaniku. Hodaniku. She is Iranian actress now living in South Korea, and arrived right now. And immediately I knew that. And some of my colleagues, they said, "But oh, she's too beautiful." But I said, yes, she is beautiful, but at the same time, there is a innocent kind of side of her, and she can be Roya. And of course, maybe I can tell Roya means dream in Persian language. So actually, all of my female characters, the leading characters, they are always called Roya.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, how powerful. That's lovely. Yeah. There is the wonderful sense of hope and dreaming in this film, despite, as you say, difficult circumstances.
Yeah.
I'm really curious to know what everyone thinks of when they've seen it. I know the audience hasn't seen it yet, but Dan, have you got questions having seen it? Is there anything else?
Well, I think there's something that's so beautiful to talk about, and it's language, because Nafis is also a poet, and for Dutch-speaking people in the audience, she wrote some articles for the Correspondent, which is an online journalist platform, also about the experience of arriving in a country and kind of learning a new language. And there's a beautiful scene in the film that deals with that. And this is so close to your heart, I think. Talk a little bit about that. The importance of language, because it's also bilingual, the film, and the characters move from Farsi into Dutch and vice versa.
Yes. I have enormous love for Dutch language. It is my second home, and also my I call it a father tongue, and because my mother tongue is Persian, and I knew I have to. Actually, without thinking about it, I knew I am going to use that struggle or also loving language and learning language in my film, because it was also the way I just experience it, and I could also use it to express her feelings and towards him, and his feelings towards her. Yes, of course, I'm a poet, and as a poet, you can't just put your poetic side. You can't put it aside. So I
loved
used it.
I'm so glad that you brought that scene up, because I loved it as someone that's interested in language. And even though I didn't understand either of the languages that was being spoken, even the subtitles and also what I could see on screen, and that connection between your two actors was really tangible. It's interesting, and I don't want you to necessarily answer this, but with the team, we were having a debate about whether there is a romantic element in this film or not. But I maybe we'll leave that ambiguous for those who haven't seen it
leave
yet.
it
But it was interesting that we had different views on that. So I love a film like that.
There's also different ways to interpret romance, right?
True.
So
connection.
Maybe there is also something more existential going on.
Exactly. See, this is what we were saying over dinner last night. We'll discuss it more over drinks afterwards for those of us who've seen the film. Now, listen, I know that you have to dash off. So has anyone in the audience got any questions for Dana or for Nafis? Don't be shy. We have podcast mics, roving mics around if anyone does. If not, there's more time to jump in later. All right, okay. I think I haven't missed any hands, so in that case, I will thank both my wonderful guests. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you
and
so much.
hope to see you around the festival and have a great time.
Definitely.
Congratulations
Thank
again.
you.
Thank you so much, Dana and Navi. My next guest is another very, very special guest. She is an incredible producer and the chair of the jury here at IFFR this year. It is Christine Vachon. Please welcome her. Thank you. Come join me, Christine. Thank you. I know you've just pretty much got off a plane. You've come from Sundance, and Past Lives, I hear, was an incredible success there. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, Past Lives is the first feature of a young South Korean playwright named Celine Song. We made it with A24, and it's a partly autobiographical story of of immigration, loss, what happens when you leave one life behind and find another one. And it's really beautifully told, and it did really, really well there. So it was great to be back at Sundance as well.
Yeah, in-person festivals, you can't beat it, can you?
Exactly.
Yeah, wonderful. Now, you've been in this game a while, and you've done some incredible films. Very hard work, I'm sure. Is it fair to say you still love your job?
Yes, I do. I mean, I think that we're all dealing with the various, the changes in the industry that, cause us to pivot wildly, constantly, but I do still love it. I mean, when you take a movie, just like Past Lives, taking that to Sundance and having that kind of connection with an audience, it's really just does remind you why you do it. And I think, the years previous, the past few years, we made a lot of movies, but not being able to have that one-on-one was hard.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I think we feel the same about the live podcast.
I'm sure.
It's lovely to be in the room with you all today. And as you know, with Girls on Film, we're very interested in showing underrepresented groups on screen. It feels like a lot of your work has done this. Did you start out with an ethos like that?
It's 20/20 hindsight is the best. I think when I started out, I knew there was a kind of movie that spoke to me, that felt provocative and original, but also entertaining. Like, I really was not, at that time in New York, 1 million years ago, which is when I started out, there were there was Hollywood movies and there were experimental films, and there really wasn't a whole lot in between. And the experimental films really weren't my cup of tea. I wanted something that was entertaining, but I wanted it to be about something that was more meaningful and maybe have characters and lives that I didn't see on screen.
And do you feel that it has become different in terms of proposing those kind of films and financing those kind of films? Do you think the landscape has shifted?
I mean, the landscape has shifted in so many ways.
Yeah.
It's not, you can't just, I could talk for 20 minutes on the glass half full version, and I could talk for 20 minutes on the glass half empty version. So, as you pointed out, no women were nominated as directors at the Academy Awards this year. But on the other hand, I do, and I also do feel that, we really focus on female directors, which we absolutely should, but there's so many other ways for people to be creative in film where women are still woefully underrepresented, but they're just not as visible. So that's, I think it's great that more women are coming up and directing features and directing television, et cetera. But I really am waiting for the day when, everybody behind the camera is, has a shot.
Yeah, that's why we've got a cinematographer category in our awards and such like. I totally agree. Before we have a clip of a film of yours that I've really enjoyed, again, I'm sure you could go on for half an hour, but if there's any women in particular listening who want to go into producing, what advice would you give them?
I mean, some days my advice would be like, what are you, out of your fucking mind? It's a tough job because we are, underappreciated. And, a friend of mine said, and I'm not quite sure who to attribute this quote to, but it's attributable to somebody, and it's very good, which is producing is, being asked to organize and throw the best party in the world, not being invited to it, and then being handed the bill at the end. So I would say that's kind of true,
Oh, wow. Okay, so it's good to go in with your eyes open, probably.
And I do think in all seriousness, producing requires a certain kind of fearlessness and a appetite for risk. And that's tough these days. I find when I speak to, folks like you, often I get asked, like, well, what about, work-life balance? And I'm like, there isn't any.
Yeah. Yeah. Sound advice. Basically, with the clip, I'd just love to say to you, is there anything you want to say about that film? Highlights, lowlights, why you're proud?
That film, I'm enormously proud of that film. It premiered at the last live Sundance, not the one we just had, obviously. And then, of course, its release got completely mangled by the pandemic, which was just tragic. But it's really, it has absolutely found its audience and has, become incredibly resonant.
It's one of those films that I'm so confident in anyone I recommend it to that they will enjoy it. It is, and actually you can't say that of many films.
That's true.
Yeah, and from our point of view in Girls on Film, fantastic in representation and two amazing female characters at the centre. Let's talk a bit about Far From Heaven, Todd Haynes' film, because I remember reviewing that back in the day and being just blown away by this film. We can see a still from that there, absolutely gorgeous. What are your memories of that film?
Well, a big memory is that Julianne Moore was pregnant when we were shooting the film, and it was like a race to let's just get this movie, let's get it done before this becomes and she literally went away on a Friday, went home on a Friday and showed up on the Monday, and it was like, oh, okay, that's happened. But really, in all seriousness, my memory of that film was really just, it felt like Todd was at the top of his craft, and he's only continued to be, of course, but it was really, I think, for him, a kind of coming together of a number of extraordinarily creative people, like Sandy Powell, for example, who were all getting to do something like this for the first time.
That's interesting, yeah. The amazing people at the top of their craft working together for the first time. That's something very exciting about that. I think that comes across just watching it, and yeah, to work with these people must have been amazing. Another one I remember reviewing back in 2005, the notorious Betty Page, Mary Hannon's film. We've got a poster of that here. I mean, I actually haven't watched this since it came out, but in my memory, it feels like it was sort of quite groundbreaking to have a female director, you know, lots of women behind the scenes, presumably, and quite a sex-positive film. Would you want to speak about that a little?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, the still you're showing is in color, and the movie's in black